Hi, you might be wondering what are the intakes, timelines, and tests you should be considering when you're going for your MBA application. So I'm going to quickly enlighten you about these and tell you about what can be the timeline to apply when you're considering your B School application. Now, this could be a B School application for an MBA program or even a Master's Specialized Business Master's program or even a Master's in Management program. But here's an ideal timeline for the B School application, especially for some of the major MBA programs out there in the world, like the Harvard, Stanford, Kellogg, Wharton, Columbia, Sloan, and all the others of the world, which are the best programs that you might want to get into. So typically, there are many rounds that happen, and these are called as round one, round two, and there are many rounds actually. But if you're an international student or an international applicant, you would be wanting to consider the first two or the maximum three rounds, depending on the particular program. See, for example, HEC Paris has multiple rounds. LBS has many rounds, right? But Harvard has only two rounds, and ISB has only three rounds. So depending on like the different universities to which you're applying, you would want to definitely consider applying in the first two rounds, because the early rounds signify that you're having the maximum chances of getting in. Because see, for example, if there are 100 seats in round one, you will be having all the 100 seats available. In round two, that number would definitely decrease. How much it decreases depends upon the particular program to which you're applying, depends on the year. For example, during the COVID times, it was really difficult and different. A lot of people had to like apply later on. So the number of people applying in round one was much lesser during 2021 and then also 2020 before. But that is going to change. So you would definitely want to understand on how to apply, like when to apply. So when you look at that, keeping in mind the deadlines, you can start working your way backwards. Now, so if you consider here, you would see that round one deadlines are in September, October, round two are in December, January. So that is your point that you have to keep in mind. And therefore, you start almost a year in advance before, right? So we recommend that you start, if you want to go for 2023, we suggest that you recommend in 2021 the preparation, right? Or worst case situation, start in January of 2022, right? So by now, what should you do is you should focus on the GMAT prep or your GRE prep, depending on which you're taking, and then starting to work on what we call as profile building. Profile building is nothing but when you look at your resume, you are going to consider adding to it and adding better things to it within that 1 year time that you have. And which is the 1 year we're talking about? The year 2022, when you will actually be applying. So here, if in February, March, you will take the GMAT and you'll get done with it. If you have to take the English proficiency test, you're going to take that. But the rest of the time, you're going to be working on the application documents. This is something that's very unique to an MBA application. The reason for that is because your application is just not your test score alone. Your recommendations, your essays, and the kind of schools to which you're shortlisting, all of these matter a lot when it comes to your application strategy. And therefore, you would want to start working on those as early as possible and spend enough time on those bits before you start. And then last but not the least, you will be starting your MBA anywhere from April onwards till about September onwards, depending on the program to which you're applying. Of course, there is a January intake, but the one that I'm talking about right now is the major intake, which is called as the major intake, obviously in September, the fall intake, right? Now, there are programs like the ISB, which start from April to April. There are programs like the SPJMR, which starts from January till December. There are programs like NCR, which again have a January start. There are programs like Columbia, which have two intakes. One is in September, one is in January, which is a J term. So depending on the different schools to which you're applying, the timeline is going to change. But what doesn't change is that you almost start applying or the application process almost 2 years in advance. And definitely 1 year, it takes more than a year for you to like start working on each aspect of your application for your ideal B school.